Good evening from ABC News headquarters in Washington. I'm Howard K. Smith.
And I'm Frank Reynolds in New York. These are tonight's headlines. The Brazilian government agrees to free 15 political prisoners in return for the release of the kidnapped United States Ambassador Elbrick. In Vietnam, the communists mount their heaviest attacks in 3 weeks. Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai leaves Hanoi even before Soviet Premier Kosygin arrives for Ho Chi Minh's funeral. And controversy over tax reform may delay any Senate action until next year. Howard?
Also tonight, reports from John Scali on administration concern that more diplomats may be kidnapped. Lou Chiaffi on Israel's ability to withstand continued guerrilla warfare. Sam Donaldson on our crumbling Capitol building. John Davenport on California's threat to Nevada's booming divorce business. Roger Peterson on Japan's drive in favor of a population explosion. And Howard Tuckner on the arraignment of a suspect in the Ann Arbor co-ed murder case. Details on these and other stories in a moment.
Well, like in school especially. Like you like to look nice because the boys are around there and like that.
That's one reason Barbara Daniels switched from ordinary deodorant sprays to Arid Extra Dry. Here's a mother's reason.
The most important thing is with Arid Extra Dry is it helps you keep dry, it helps stop that wet feeling.
What about those other sprays you both tried, Barbara?
They help to deodorize, but they didn't keep us dry.
Yes, so when it doesn't keep you dry, I always figure, well, it's my money's down the drain.
Like it's only half the job done. I mean, Arid Extra Dry helps do the whole job.
Do you happen to know why?
Well, I know that it has some sort of extra something in it.
An anti-wet ingredient, aluminum chlorhydrate. Every day, use Arid Extra Dry. To be sure, help stop wetness.
The American ambassador to Brazil, C. Burke Elbrick, who was kidnapped yesterday in Rio de Janeiro, is still held captive, but the prospects for his release are much brighter tonight. The government of Brazil today agreed to the kidnappers' demands and announced that 15 political prisoners will be flown out of the country. The announcement was made less than 2 hours before a new deadline set by the kidnappers, 1:50 Eastern Daylight Time today. They planted a note in the poor box of a Rio church along with a letter from Ambassador Elbrick to his wife. In the letter, Elbrick referred to his kidnappers as very, very determined and asked that the police not try to find him. That, he said, might be dangerous. According to the kidnappers, the ambassador will be freed when the 15 political prisoners land in either Algeria, Chile, or Mexico. And we have a late report tonight, not yet confirmed, from Brazil, quoting a Brazilian diplomatic source as saying the 15 political prisoners already have been freed and have been placed on board a plane bound for Mexico. The State Department expressed deep appreciation for Brazil's decision to meet the ransom demands. At the same time, however, it is now feared that perhaps the Brazilian kidnappers have introduced a new terrorist tactic, ambassador hijacking. ABC's diplomatic correspondent John Scali reports from San Clemente, California.
Here at the Western White House, there's a feeling that the Brazilian government had no alternative but to meet the kidnappers' demands, even though it creates a dangerous international precedent. President Nixon and Secretary of State Rogers knew in advance of the decision and approved, despite their fear that it will encourage fanatics to kidnap other American diplomats in Brazil and elsewhere. When you add kidnappings to the already aggravating problem caused by hijacking of international airliners, you have two new, highly unpredictable factors which can inflame relations between governments and even affect world peace. At present, no one has the foggiest notion of how to deal with these problems before they get worse. But in this case, at least, officials here are grateful that the Brazilian government acted like an anguished parent and gave in to the kidnappers. This is John Scali, ABC News at the Western White House.
The 3-day truce proclaimed by the Viet Cong and North Vietnam for Ho Chi Minh's funeral will not begin until early Monday morning. And today the communists stepped up the war with a series of mortar and rocket attacks on more than 80 bases and towns. The sharpest fighting today was in Tay Ninh and Binh Long provinces. Saigon has not responded as yet to the call for the 3-day truce, But South Vietnamese officials say it is under consideration, and a State Department spokesman said, "I expect we will follow the lead of the South Vietnamese." It had been expected that Ho Chi Minh's funeral would provide the first opportunity in 4.5 years for a face-to-face meeting between top Chinese and Soviet leaders, but apparently that is not to happen. The Chinese delegation, led by Premier Zhou Enlai, has already left Hanoi after paying their last respects to the North Vietnamese president. The Soviet delegation, led by Premier Kosygin, has not yet arrived in Hanoi. In the Middle East, Israel has carried out air and ground assaults against Arab guerrilla bases in Lebanon. It was the third airstrike against Lebanon this week. Day after day, the news from the Middle East is much the same. For the relatively small state of Israel, this warfare is tremendously expensive, both in lives and money. For a report on how Israel fights a war and builds a nation at the same time, here is ABC's Lou Cioffi in Jerusalem.
The continuing troubles along Israel's borders really amounts to a war of attrition. And the question is, how long can Israel afford it? The answer is probably indefinitely. Maintaining a large army for a small country like this is certainly a drain on its limited resources. And it's getting more costly as Israel must keep up with the Arabs in the more expensive, sophisticated weapons. To get the needed foreign currency, Israel has increased its exports. But it still buys more than it sells, and there's a dangerous imbalance. The internal economy seems healthy enough. The shops and the stores are filled with food and goods. There's practically no unemployment, and the standard of living in Israel is certainly the highest in the Middle East. But consumer items are still very expensive, because although Israel's industry has been expanding with the help of foreign investments, they still don't produce enough for the country. One of the great money makers, of course, is tourism. Since the Six-Day War, it's been rapidly increasing. Last year, there were 400,000 tourists who came here. This year, even more are expected. New luxury hotels are being put up just about as fast as the money becomes available. But even tourism is not enough. To build the homes and hospitals and schools for the tens of thousands of new immigrants, it would be impossible except for Israel's unique natural resource, the millions of Jews who live in other countries, and the money they contribute each year. This year, they're being asked to contribute $350 million, with half of it coming from the United States. And there's very little doubt that the quota will be met. This is how Israel balances its books. And as long as the money pours in, Israel can keep on doing what it's doing for a long, long time. This is Lou Cioffi, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Howard and I will be back with more news in a moment.
Introducing some of the stars on ABC's bright new season. The bride, the groom, and their 6 lovely children.
How would you girls like to come along with us?
On your honeymoon? What should I take? A girl, dummy.
The Brady Bunch.
Mr. Deeds, your uncle left you over $50 million.
Go to town with Mr. Deeds. Meet Jimmy Durante and the Lennon sisters. They'll introduce you to some very entertaining people.
Meet us in September. Think how much fun it would be on ABC.
The wide-ranging tax reform bill passed by the House of Representatives a month ago has become the liveliest business before Congress. Involved are the administration's hopes to stem inflation, the privileges of rich vested interests, and some political credit for giving voters tax relief. With all that at stake, it is not surprising that the Senate Finance Committee's hearings are becoming less hearings than speechings. ABC Capitol Hill correspondent Bob Clark reports.
Democrats continued needling administration witnesses for not giving enough tax relief to middle-income groups. Senator Gore said his secretary's $26,000 salary would put her in a 40% tax bracket, while the chairman of U.S. Steel makes $600,000 and would pay only 50% in taxes.
When we get to the ridiculous extreme that there's only 10 percentage points difference between the salary, the tax on the salary of one of my secretaries, and the tax on the salary of Roger Blau of some $600,000 or $700,000, then we've just about abandoned the principle of progressivism in our system of income taxation. And I'm going to fight you on this 50% limit. It is not fair. It is not right. It violates the very principle of gradualism. In 15 years' time, we will have reduced the marginal rate on Mr. Roger Blau's salary from 90% to 50%. What taxpayer, other taxpayer, except those in that category, has had such a tax reduction?
The real eyebrow raiser for some taxpayers may have been the disclosure that a senator's secretary makes $26,000 a year. Bob Clark, ABC News, Washington.
The administration's main worry about the tax bill is it would put more money into the economy and increase inflation. That same worry caused President Nixon yesterday to order all federal construction cut immediately by 75%. Reaction to that order today has been a combination of pain and resignation. Governor Robert Ray of Iowa said, "We don't like it, but something drastic had to be done." However, in one region, the pain is more evident than the resignation, as ABC's Don Farmer reports from Atlanta.
Many people here in the South feel that the only good thing about the federal government is its checkbook. Now, the federal money bag may be closing a bit, and southern states may be among the hardest hit. Officials here are not really sure yet what projects may be canceled or postponed, but highways may be among them. In 11 southern states, Washington pays an average of 90% of all road construction. This year alone, almost $1.5 billion federal dollars are allocated for southern highways. If some of that money is cut off, employment could be affected. Demand for construction workers could decrease, and that might relieve pressure for higher wages, but it also might put some people out of work. Some union leaders claim a cutback could hurt efforts to integrate construction unions. And there are some other problems. The South has a large number of military installations. Any construction cutbacks there could hurt the economies of nearby communities. Another worrisome thought here is that airport expansion might be curtailed. Airports in Houston and Tampa, for example, are in the midst of new construction, and federal money pays part of the bill. Around the South, some states may rush to complete projects before the cutoff deadline. If so, that could falsely inflate the economies of some areas, and that would be just the opposite of the desired effect. That is, a cooling off of the inflationary trend. Few things are more frightening to a hard-pressed state official than a federal money squeeze. And that is why Mr. Nixon's move may be politically unpopular, whether or not it is economically effective. Don Farmer, ABC News in Atlanta.
The president's order to cut back federal construction may be disregarded in one place. On Monday, a move will be made to start work on the most federal of all constructions, the Capitol itself. ABC's Sam Donaldson has the story.
It is a beautiful sight, the west front of the Capitol, and from here it looks as if it could stand forever. But look closer, and it becomes apparent that the only reason it's standing today is because of the timely placing of huge wooden supports for the columns and for the bracing of the outer walls. Built of sandstone and lime mortar 150 years ago, the outer wall has been ravaged by fire, weather, and countless coats of paint. The stones are shifting. Huge cracks are opening, hidden from casual tourists only by more paint, and the sandstone blocks are crumbling. Not only is it degrading, it is dangerous.
Movement of these walls indicate that we have a horizontal and a lateral movement, and this movement is continually acting on these braces. The walls move out and they move down.
Is the west front in danger of collapsing?
Not total collapse. There is possibility that certain of these stones can move continually more rapidly than others.
The architect's office and the Hill's leading powers want to extend the west front by 44 feet at the center, 88 feet on the ends, maintaining the same general appearance, but providing extra space for offices and restaurants. The traditionalists in and out of Congress want to restore the original walls, sticking as close to the original as possible. The first showdown in 1966 ended in a draw. Nothing was done. The next go-round, which begins on Monday, must settle it before the west front settles for good. Sam Donaldson, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
If approved, the extension project would cost $45 million. Frank and I will be back with more news in a moment.
Herb, I have 10 books of S&H green stamps in the kitchen drawer. Have you seen them? Where are they, Herb?
There.
Barbells. I was going to get an 8-speed blender with those stamps.
Don't begrudge me, Alma. You've already gotten plenty of things with S&H green stamps. You got that wall clock. You got that reading lamp. You got all that fireplace equipment.
Yes, but barbells? Come on, Herb.
You'll see. When I'm flat and hard, you're going to say thank you, S&H green stamps, for making my husband a Mr. America.
Well, since you got those barbells, let's see you lift them.
Sure. Oh, Alma, the back. The back is out, the whole back.
Thank you, S&H green stamps, for making my husband a Mr. America.
S&H green stamps. The more you lick them, the more you like them.
I'd like some pastel-colored cigarettes.
So that's your fella?
Silly.
Yeah.
Come along, Winnie.
What have you got for those frosty cigarettes?
How about these?
Thank you.
I want the most feminine cigarette you have.
Yeah, and let me have some scented cigarettes in a sandalwood box.
I'm out of sandalwood.
Those will
I
do.
say, do you have some square cigarettes in a round box? Or is it the other way around?
In this fancy, frilly, you gotta have a gimmick world, there's one cigarette that doesn't go along.
Camel filters, please.
Camel filters aren't for everybody. There's no compromise in the tobacco. No nonsense about this cigarette. Camel filters. They're not for everybody, but then they don't try to be.
Traditionally, the state of Nevada has been known for two things, gambling and divorces. Today, its preeminence in the divorce field was seriously threatened by its next-door neighbor. Governor Ronald Reagan signed a measure into law which simplifies divorce processes greatly in California. For a look at what this is likely to do to Reno, here is ABC's John Davenport.
Ever since divorcees began flinging their wedding bands off the Virginia Street Bridge here, divorce in Reno has been big business. Before unloading a husband, though, the average divorcee unloads about $1,000 per spouse into the Nevada economy. That takes a 6-week waiting period. And that's why so many Nevadans are upset about California's liberal new divorce law. It's estimated that as many as half of Nevada's divorces each year involve Californians. And if Californians stop coming, many Nevadans will start hurting right in the pocketbook. California's new law now requires only a 6-month instead of a year's waiting period. And the grounds have been reduced from such harsh charges as mental cruelty and adultery, which require one spouse to take the blame for the breakup. Now there are just 2 grounds, insanity or irreconcilable differences. It all means that Californians can stay home and perhaps avoid often embarrassing and emotional court proceedings. And they can begin a new life sooner. Nevada leads the nation in divorces. Next to gambling, the divorce dollar represents one of the state's top industries. But with California's new law, the divorce business may be in for a depression. One Nevada lawmaker said, "Our racket may be ruined." Another claims for each 1,000 fewer divorces, Nevada could lose $1 million. This could affect another big business here, too, the marriage market. Many tie a second knot as soon as they can untie the first. Opponents of California's new law say it will turn that state into a divorce mill like here in Nevada. But that hardly seems likely, since nearly 1 out of every 2 marriages fails in California anyway. John Davenport, ABC News, Reno.
The Census Bureau reported this afternoon that the United States is now in the middle of a marriage boom, a natural follow-up to the post-war baby boom. 4 million of those post-war babies, now adults, got married last year. There's one nation that is more concerned about shrinking than growing. ABC's Roger Peterson reports from Tokyo.
These little people have just been born into a country that will be drastically losing rather than gaining population in 30 years. While the population explosion is a major concern of most of the countries of the world, particularly the Asian nations, the Japanese are trying to figure out how to up their birth rate and increase their population. This may sound strange coming from the 7th largest nation in the world, but in the past 10 years, Japan has been the only country to reproduce below the rate necessary to maintain population. Japan's birth rate has been cut by more than half since the war. If these trends continue, Japan will be predominantly a nation of old folks in 30 years, with recreation centers for the elderly like this one outnumbering playgrounds. Most Japanese say they avoid large families now because they can't enjoy the benefits of Japan's post-war prosperity, cars, coolers, and color TVs, and still afford the necessary schooling for more children. Another reason, the average family here is father, mother, and 2 children. Trying to find a home for more in the overcrowded cities where the jobs are and the people are wall to wall is impossible. When Japan starts to lose population and those remaining grow older, the already inadequate labor force will shrink still further and the nation will suffer. But until the government can do something to make cities livable, raise incomes, and lower education costs, any program to increase family size is doomed before it starts. Roger Peterson, ABC News, Tokyo.
America's growing population causes headaches over our environment. The government estimated today that 8 million people now drink from water systems containing bacteria and pesticides at levels high enough to cause concern. In the Everglades in Florida, the threat to the water supply appears to have eased. Construction of a jet port north of the park was drying up its streams, but mounting public pressure has now led Florida to look for a new airport site. Your color television set is another problem. The government today warned viewers to sit at least 6 feet from the set because of possible radiation. Frank and I will be back with more news in a moment.
You know better than I do the problems you have with shirt collars and cuffs. And when you get a blood stain from a shaving cut, too, you feel like throwing the shirt away, don't you? You don't have to do that anymore. You pre-soak that shirt in Colgate's new Axion. Axion is not a detergent, and it's not a bleach. Axion is an enzyme-active pre-soak that soaks out dirt and stains detergents can't wash out and bleaches can't bleach out. Look here, this shirt had neck rings and a blood stain, too. But it was pre-soaked in Axion before detergent washing. See, no more stains, no more dirt. Just sort as usual and pre-soak all your washables in Axion. Even colors and fabrics you wouldn't dare bleach. You've heard me say it before. This is one new laundry product you should try. Colgate's new Axion.
John Norman Collins, the college student charged with the murder of Karen Sue Beineman, was arraigned today in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Miss Beineman was the last of 7 young women to be murdered in the Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area. ABC's Howard Tuckner reports.
This time there were no crowds, and only a few local curiosity seekers were on hand to get a look at the accused young killer. And because the county jail is less than a half block from the county courthouse here in Ann Arbor, security was less than heavy.
Still, though the distance was short, the 22-year-old Collins was driven, not walked, to the courthouse in a police van with sheriff's deputies and other prisoners. The arraignment before Circuit Judge John Conlon lasted only 4 minutes. Collins, impassive as usual in public since his arrest, said nothing, stood mute to the first-degree murder charge. And the judge entered an innocent plea. Judge Conlon told Collins' court-appointed lawyer, Richard Ryan, that he would consider 3 defense motions, including one requesting that certain evidence be suppressed because of an alleged improper search warrant.
I made a shotgun motion to suppress everything that was seized under a so-called search warrant that was issued. Certainly all of it will not be suppressed, but I think that certain items should and will be.
Ryan said that he may request that the Collins murder trial be held out of this county because of the emotion and publicity surrounding the case. Howard Tuckner, ABC News, Ann Arbor.
Howard and I will be back in a moment.
There's Kathy. Know what people say about her?
She has the freshest mouth in town.
Hi. Freshest mouth in town.
And they're right. Kathy does have the freshest mouth in town because she chews Dentyne. Dentyne chewing gum.
Okay, Dentyne. Do your stuff.
Taste that tingle? That Dentyne tingle. The tingle tells you your mouth is fresh. Your breath is fresh. Really fresh when you chew Dentyne.
See what I mean?
Chew clean-tasting Dentyne, and you too can have the freshest mouth in town.
Dentyne. That's all it takes.
Far the most consequential event in the news of the week now ending was the death of the formidable wisp Ho Chi Minh. But it's not clear what those consequences are. Frank has a comment.
I find it interesting that Hanoi, Saigon, and Washington all have quickly agreed that the death of Ho Chi Minh will have no effect on the war. Naturally, the North Vietnamese would say that, and the South Vietnamese rarely see any encouraging signs anywhere. But as far as this country is concerned, Ho's passing might, just might, present us with an opportunity to influence the new czars in Hanoi. There is much talk around of maybe a new peace initiative from Washington, but Ho Chi Minh's successors are not likely to agree to anything, publicly or privately, that would indicate weakness or a lessening of their determination to carry on Ho's policies. However, it is not impossible, you know, that there are men in Hanoi who see the wisdom of creating conditions that can make it politically feasible for President Nixon to continue withdrawing troops. The best way to do that is to reduce, not increase, American casualties. Granted, that is exactly opposite to the view they have always held, that the best way to force us out was to raise American casualties and increase the uproar here at home. But they also know that the president delayed his announcement of another withdrawal because of their most recent offensive. If he were to pull out another 50,000 men soon, even the most doctrinaire hardliner in Hanoi could hardly believe it to be a perfidious trick, which is what they said about the first withdrawal. It is very strange, but it is true. Hanoi's goal and ours are one and the same. They want us out, and we want to get out. Since that is now our declared policy, both sides will benefit by hastening, not delaying the process, and lives will be spared. For let us face up to it, they haven't won the war, but they, and we, have made Ho Chi Minh's words come true. A long time ago, he told the French, "You will kill 10 of our men, and we will kill 1 of yours. And in the end, it will be you who will tire of it." Howard?
Thank you, Frank. That's tonight's news and comment. Good night.